We're now going to work with dictionaries and sets. Dictionaries are a very specific type of data storage that lets you work with keyed pairs. And one of the reasons that we moved to Python was simply to have this data structure available in our first programming class. You use it a lot when you're working in Android or iOS development. When I created my first app for iOS, I was doing something where I wanted to have a date and time stamp with a blood sugar level because I'm diabetic and I was programming some for that. And this was the best way for me to do it because there weren't going to be any duplicated date and time stamps because it went out to the actual minute and second when I did the glucose reading, so I could put it in and they'd never duplicate. That's the most important thing to know when you're working with a dictionary, is that the key values must not duplicate. So here I'm creating a dictionary, and we could do this as an empty dictionary. And so we've worked with lists and we've worked with tuples. If you're creating an empty dictionary, so if I wanted to do buildings and what was in there or whatever, building names, whatever, I could do BLDG, that's the name of my variable. And if I want to make an empty one, I just need to do the equal sign and the curly brackets. So that's how you set an empty dictionary. We can do all sorts of things to dictionaries. Instead of using our indexes, we actually have to use that key value. So here I have classrooms. Programming 105 is in E112. Web 105 is in E116. Mad 107 is in E104. So I can look up, if I know the code, the class, Programming 105, I can find out which classroom it's being taught in. They're paired that way. If I want to print them, I do a print classrooms, that's the dictionary name, and then the key value. I can do if statements. If Programming 105 is in customers, then we can print the value for it there. Let's look at some of the other things that we can do with dictionaries. And dictionaries are really handy. It's interesting how you can mix data types, because you can put a dictionary into a list, which is what I was doing for that program that I did on blood sugars. It's another way that you can pass a lot of data at one time between functions is by using a dictionary. So anything that you're using that with paired values, where you have some sort of one-to-one and the initial value, the key value, is unique, is a good candidate for being stored in a dictionary. So online, there are examples of doing quizzes based on state capitals. Each state only has one state capital. That is something that would make sense to pair in a dictionary, or state bird, or anything like that. So anything with a one-to-one relationship has the potential to be put into a dictionary. There are other things that we can do here. So we can add to a dictionary. So this is mutable. That means we can change it after it's been created. So if I wanted to add something to the classrooms, so if I'm going to add something to it, I would do classrooms. And I could get this as a variable, but I put the key in here. So I could get something from a user. I could put a variable in here. But I'm just going to put in CDM 110 and the room that it is currently in, A121. Those are both in quotes. And I did that wrong. So we're going to put CDM 110. That is correct. I have to put the key there. But to add it, we have to do the equal sign. And then we put in the value. So it's a key value pair. So this is the key. What's the class? The value is the room. And so that would be a string. So it would be A121. So that's how you would add something. And you could go through some sort of loop or while statement asking a user to enter data. And you can keep adding to the dictionary as you go. There are other things you can do. You can get the length of the dictionary to find out how many elements that are in it, and that works like it does in a string or in a list or in a tuple. We also can mix data types. I could have had just numbers here. This would be allowed. They don't have to both be strings. I could have had just 104 if I wanted to just have a number. That is completely allowed. So you can also, if you want to print everything in a dictionary, you would use a for statement to loop through it. So you could loop through classes and then print the parts that go with them. There are some other dictionary methods that are very helpful. You can use clear, which will completely clear the contents of a dictionary. You can get a value associated with a specific key. You can get all of the items from a dictionary. You can pop a key, so it returns a default value. What it does is it returns the value associated with a key and then removes the key value pair. So if you're going to pop it, you're removing it. You can do a random pop item and you can get values. So you can look through the book on some more samples on those. But dictionaries are really, what you need to know is that they're a special data type where you do key value pairs, and you can pretty much use them very similar ways to the way you would use a list or a tuple, and there are more detailed examples in the textbook.